A lot of time it has something to do with how we feel about the task itself. Maybe it's not interesting or engaging enough, maybe it's too hard, or maybe the outcome is related to something which is very significant for us. We also sometimes tend to imagine ourselves working a certain way, and I guess when it doesn't meet our ideal expectation, we tend to push it away, thinking that maybe we would do a better job of it later.
So there are a bunch of reasons why people may procrastinate, ranging from their self-worth to a lack of motivation or structure. But I guess I would like to bring into focus something else. I think people tend to procrastinate when they fear the outcome of a given task. But the decision to procrastinate isn't as straightforward as that, right? Because oftentimes what happens is we don't realize that we're afraid of the outcome, and so we give ourselves a false sense of security by assuming that a project won't take as long as it actually would, right? Alternatively, we may also tell ourselves that we aren't in the right frame of mind to do something at present, right? And wait until we're feeling a okay. But sadly, both these assumptions don't allow us to complete the task at hand. While procrastination and laziness look very much alike, the key difference is in the root of the behavior. Procrastination is an active decision that one makes. So, procrastination involves ignoring an unpleasant but important task to do something that's either easier to do or something that's more enjoyable by the person. Another difference, I think, is while both of them present as a lack of motivation, unlike someone with laziness, the procrastinator aspires and intends to complete the task eventually, albeit at a higher cost to themselves.
Procrastination stems from an emotional reaction, and the behavioral manifestation of that is noticed as procrastination. Laziness may not have anything to do with our perception of the task or how we feel about the task, although sometimes it can happen that we may not be in the mood to do it at that point of time and may just want to take a break. It's best when we look at procrastination as a coping mechanism, wherein the goal is usually to avoid something that invokes anxiety in us. And in the short term, then it becomes really effective because it does help us successfully avoid that anxiety. I think procrastination can lead to various forms of avoidance. We distract ourselves by engaging in something else. We do other things that could be tangentially related to the task, but not directly the task itself, like, for example, endless list making. Another manifestation can be constantly worrying about the task. There could also be overcompensation where we end up taking too many tasks and not being able to prioritize them, and just becomes a self feeding cycle, right? Like we kind of constantly fall back on our expectations of how we should be doing the task and we are unable to do it.
For the most part, it manifests as not doing an activity that someone's required to do. Sometimes, however, it can manifest differently in other ways, like, for instance, waiting for the right mood or the right time to do a task, or leaving out something really important from your to do list. In fact, even as starting, let's say, a high priority task and then doing something unimportant, something inconsequential, like, let's say, scrolling your IG feed and coming across an ad for something and proceeding to actually go window shop for it instead of getting back to work. At the outset, procrastination is a self defeating behavior pattern, but it can be seen as serving a purpose until it doesn't. Because remember that a pattern is only good until it's truly adaptive. Well, for example, for someone with perfectionistic tendencies, procrastination can serve as a strategy against things like a fear of failure or self criticality, and also avoiding unpleasant work by devoting energy to other tasks like organizing or cleaning can help the procrastinator from feeling unproductive altogether.
Goal is to cope with the mood state, which is generally found to be intolerable or aversive at that moment. so that in the end, then procrastination is quite effective because it does help us with the alleviation of that anxiety in the short term. I think the most important thing would be to let go of our expectations of how perfectly we want to do that task. I think it's important to remember that sometimes it is just about doing a good enough job.
When people procrastinate, their present self benefits by avoiding unpleasant work, right? But what happens is their future self is paying the price of it in stress or in punishment, in self criticality. So, essentially, developing a sense of empathy for one's future self, like one would do for a close friend, for instance, can be a very important first step to ending that habit of procrastination.